Most people, as soon as the situation gets tough, go into high alert mode. They call everyone they know. They start making decisions they can't regret. They react noisily, quickly, and almost always in a way they'll regret. What if you didn't do any of that? What I'm going to present to you are 7 specific psychological anchors, not mantras, not breathing exercises. Real cognitive techniques used by people who need to work under pressure. Surgeons, hostage negotiators, special forces operators who don't have the luxury of falling apart. Keep reading, because anchor number 5 is the one most people never see coming. It seems like weakness, but it's the opposite. And I invite you to subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Here's what actually happens when a crisis lands. Your amygdala, that's the oldest part of your brain. The alarm fires before your prefrontal cortex even knows there's a problem. Cortisol floods your bloodstream in under a second. Your heart rate spikes. Your field of vision literally narrows. This is useful if a lion is chasing you. It is the worst possible state for making decisions about your job, your relationship, or your finances. The 2026 version of this is 10 times worse, because now the crisis doesn't arrive on your doorstep, it arrives in your hand. At 11 p.m. when your defenses are already down. A text, a notification, a voicemail you weren't expecting. So anchor 1 is not deep breathing. It's physiological observation. The moment you feel the spike, you name it out loud, not metaphorically. Literally, you say to yourself or to the room, my heart rate just went up, my chest tightened. That was cortisol. When you name a physical sensation, you engage your prefrontal cortex, the rational brain, and the alarm starts to come down. You are not suppressing the feeling, you are just interrupting the feedback loop before it turns useful fear into full panic. Useful fear keeps you sharp. Visceral panic makes you someone else's problem. Okay, so you've named the physical reaction. Now here's where most people make their second mistake. They treat their interpretation of the event as the event itself. Your boss calls you into a meeting with no context. Your mind immediately writes the ending. You're getting fired. Someone goes silent after a difficult conversation, and you have already decided they hate you. A deal falls through, and you've already concluded your career is over. Your thoughts are not the crisis. They are stories you are building on top of the crisis. And in a genuine emergency, those stories will cost you. Anchor 2 is objective labeling. You describe what is happening using only words that would appear in a police report. No adjectives with emotional charge. No interpretation. Not, this is a disaster and I don't know what I'm going to do. That is a story. Instead, I received information this morning that my contract ends in 30 days. I currently have 4 active clients and 12,000 in savings. Those are the facts. You are not minimizing what's happening. You are refusing to let your brain add charges to the bill that haven't come in yet. The shift from, why is this happening to me, to what are the actual data points, is not a philosophical question. It is the difference between someone who gets paralyzed and someone who moves. Your brain catastrophizes in timelines. The second something goes wrong, it doesn't think about the next hour. It thinks about next year, the divorce papers, the apartment you might have to leave, the conversation you'll have to have with your parents, and none of that exists yet. Anchor 3 is what high-stakes professionals call micro-horizon focus. You collapse your time perspective down to 60 seconds. Not today, not this week, not the outcome, just this. What is the smallest thing I can do right now that isn't? Nothing. Pour the glass of water, close the laptop, walk to the other room, send 1 email, not 5. This is not productivity advice, this is neuroscience. When the brain has an immediate micro-task, it stops projecting. The catastrophizing loop has nowhere to go when you are focused on one physical action in real time. Climbers use this. They don't think about the summit, when everything goes sideways on the mountain, When the weather turns and the route changes, the only thought is the next handhold. That's it. The whole mountain collapses into one square foot of rock right in front of their face. You bring the mountain down to 60s, then you take another 60. This is where it gets uncomfortable, because the next anchor runs directly against one of the most common pieces of advice you will ever hear. Take control, own the situation, be the one in the driver's seat. The problem is that most of the things causing your crisis right now are not in the driver's seat. Someone else made a decision that affected you. A market shifted. A relationship changed. You did not control the input, and no amount of willpower will undo what already happened. Anchor 4 is what the Stoics, and I mean Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, people who lived through genuine catastrophe, called the dichotomy of control. You draw a line down the middle of the page. On one side, what I can influence. On the other, what I cannot. What you cannot influence gets radical indifference, not suppression, not pretending it doesn't matter. Genuine, deliberate indifference, because spending energy there is the same as burning fuel while sitting in neutral. What you can influence gets everything you have. The man who fails here is the one tangled in his own rope, pulling harder on the end that doesn't move, exhausting himself on the fixed, variable, until by the time he gets to what he actually controls, he has nothing left. You are not giving up. You are choosing where to spend ammunition. This is the one I promised you, when the crisis is visible to others, when people are watching how you respond, when the room is waiting for you to speak, when someone has just delivered news and they need a reaction. Most people feel the pressure to fill the air immediately. Don't. That pause you just felt. That's what I'm talking about. It felt strange, right? Maybe a little uncomfortable. You were waiting for something. That discomfort is not yours. It belongs to whoever is watching, and it is doing something very specific. It is signaling that you are not reactive, that you are not desperate, that what you say next has been considered. The pause before the response is not hesitation, it is authority. Every room you walk into, whether it's a boardroom, a difficult conversation with someone who hurt you, or a moment where you've just been blindsided, the person who pauses before speaking is the person everyone else reads as having the higher ground. Watching a storm from behind thick glass, that's the visual. You see everything. You feel the temperature shift, but the wind is not moving you. Train this in small situations. Someone says something that irritates you. Pause before you respond. Someone gives you news, good or bad. Pause. It will feel unnatural for a while. Then it becomes your default, and once it's your default, the crisis no longer controls the room. You do. Stoic philosophy does not tell you that pain is good. Marcus Aurelius was not running around saying suffering is a gift. That is a motivational poster, not a philosophy. What it does say is something sharper. The obstacle is the place where character either breaks or gets built, not in the clear runs, not when everything is working. In exactly this, the sudden, sideways thing you didn't plan for. Anchor 6 is contextual reframing. Not everything happens for a reason. That is the motivational poster version. The real version is this. Given that this is happening, what does handling it well build in me that nothing else could? The negotiator who has been through 37 failed deals knows something that the negotiator with a perfect record doesn't. The person who has rebuilt once knows they can rebuild again. The man who has been left knows he survived being. Keep left. You are not looking for the silver lining. You are asking a more practical question. What does the person who gets through this look like? And am I becoming that person right now? That question changes everything about how you move through the next 72 hours. The final anchor is where the other 6 land. Here's the trap at the end of a crisis. You do all the right things internally. You manage the panic. You label the facts. You control what you can control. And then you attach the entire value of the effort to a specific result. I need this job offer. I need this relationship to recover. I need this deal to close. And if the result doesn't come, if the job goes to someone else, if the relationship ends anyway, then everything you did felt like it was for nothing. It wasn't. But you won't feel that way if the outcome was the only thing you were measuring. Anchor 7 is process commitment. You make a decision once about the standard of behavior you will hold, regardless of what comes back. You will show up prepared. You will respond with clarity. You will not betray your own values to force a specific result. You will do the work fully, with no guarantee. The outcome is not in your column. Your conduct is. Epictetus was a slave. He had no control over his circumstances. What he built, what he passed forward to Marcus Aurelius, who was running an empire in a constant state of crisis, was this: the only thing you ever truly own is how you act, not what happens to you. How you act. That's not a soft principle. That's the hardest thing in the room, because it means you stop bargaining with outcomes and start investing in yourself. Every time, regardless of the result. 7 anchors. None of them are complicated. All of them are hard. Name the physical reaction. Label the facts without the story. Collapse the timeline to 60 seconds. Draw the line between what you can and can't control. Use the silence. Ask what this builds. Commit to your process. The crisis isn't going away. You're just done letting it run the room. If this landed for you, the next video covers what happens in the 72 hours after the initial shock, when the adrenaline drops and the real psychological work starts. That one goes deeper on anchors 3 and 6. It's already up. Let me tell you what was happening inside David Brasher's body in April 1996, when he was on Everest and the storm hit. He had been on that mountain before. He knew what a bad weather window looked like. And when he saw what was coming, and saw the other teams still pushing for the summit, he made a decision that looked, from the outside, like he was quitting. He turned around. He went back to camp. 8 people died on the mountain that day. The decision that saved his life was not made by his rational brain in a calm room. It was made in the middle of a cortisol spike, with his heart rate elevated, with adrenaline already in his bloodstream. And he made the right call anyway. How? Because he had trained himself to observe his physiology instead of being consumed by it. Here's what actually happens in your body the moment crisis lands. The amygdala, your brain's threat detector, fires in roughly 80 milliseconds. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational thought, doesn't even register the event for another 20 to 40 milliseconds after that. Which means your body is already reacting before your brain has decided whether the threat is real. Cortisol floods your bloodstream. Adrenaline follows. Your heart rate spikes. Your peripheral vision literally narrows, a phenomenon called tunnel vision, because your brain is routing blood to your large muscles, not your eyes. Your digestive system slows. Your immune response suppresses. Your body is doing exactly what it was built to do. It is preparing you to fight or run from a physical threat. The problem is that in 2026, the crisis is almost never physical. It is a phone call, a message, a silence where there should be a response. And your body cannot tell the difference between a lion at the edge of the camp and a voicemail from your lawyer at 11 p.m. So here is what Anchor 1 looks like in practice. The moment you feel the spike, the chest tightening, the jaw locking, the sudden heat behind your eyes, you stop and you say out loud or under your breath, "My heart rate just went up. My hands are slightly cold. I'm having a stress response." Not "I'm panicking." Not "this is bad." Those are interpretations. You want pure physical observation, the temperature of your hands, the tension in your shoulders, the shallow depth of your breathing. You are a scientist observing a subject, and the subject happens to be you. There is a reason military training, survival, evasion, resistance, escape, spends a significant portion of its curriculum not on survival tactics, but on teaching soldiers to recognize and name their own physiological fear response. Because a soldier who does not know they are afraid will act as if they're not afraid, which means they won't compensate for what the fear is doing to their decision-making. A soldier who knows they are afraid can account for it. Same principle applies at 11 p.m. when that voicemail comes in. You don't need to be brave, you need to be accurate. Name what your body is doing, then the next anchor can begin. I want to tell you what I actually did the night everything fell apart for me. Not the version where I handled it well, the real version. I sat on the kitchen floor. I'm not being poetic. I literally sat on the floor because I couldn't decide whether to stand or sit, and my legs made the decision for me. And I stayed there for probably 40 minutes, doing nothing except running every possible catastrophic scenario I could construct about the next 12 months of my life. I wasn't crying. I wasn't in shock. I was just running. My brain was running at full speed in a direction that had absolutely no exit. At some point, I don't remember exactly when, I looked at the coffee maker on the counter and I thought I could make coffee. That's it. That was the entire thought. Not a strategy, not a recovery plan, just there's a coffee maker and I know how to use it. And that is a thing I could do right now. I got up, I made the coffee, and somewhere between filling the water reservoir and waiting for it to brew, my brain slowed down. Not because the problem was solved, not because anything had changed, but because my hands were doing something and my eyes were watching the water level rise, and the catastrophizing loop had temporarily run out of oxygen. Here is what I've since learned about why it worked. When you are in the middle of a personal crisis, your brain doesn't catastrophize because it's broken. It catastrophizes because it is trying desperately to protect you from every possible bad outcome simultaneously. It is running threat assessments on your job, your relationships, your finances, your identity, all at once, because if it can anticipate the worst, maybe it can prepare you for it. The problem is that this process has no off switch. Left alone, it will run all night. And by morning, you will have experienced, emotionally, every possible version of a future that hasn't happened yet, and you will be exhausted from living through things that don't exist. The 60-second horizon interrupts that process, not by solving the problem, but by giving your brain something it can actually complete. I've talked to a lot of people in the time since that kitchen floor. People going through divorces, people who lost their jobs, people who got a diagnosis they weren't expecting, people who lost someone, and almost all of them, when I ask what they did in the first few hours, describe some version of the same thing. They washed the dishes. They walked around the block 3 times. They reorganized something. They sat outside with a cigarette they didn't even really want. They made tea. None of them knew they were doing something psychologically sophisticated. They were just trying to exist in the next 60 seconds. And it worked because it's supposed to work. The body already knows this. We forget because we're convinced that in a real crisis, the only acceptable response is a grand strategy. There is no grand strategy at 1 a.m. on the kitchen floor. There is just the coffee maker. So here is what I want you to take from this, concretely. When the crisis lands tonight, tomorrow, next week, whenever it comes, and your brain starts sprinting toward every worst-case scenario it can construct, you don't need to stop it with willpower. You don't need to force yourself to think positively. You don't need a plan. You need one physical action. The smaller the better. Something your hands know how to do without asking your brain for permission. Make something, clean something, walk somewhere. Write one sentence, not a plan, just one sentence describing what just happened, the way a journalist would write it. Put your feet on the floor and feel the floor. Open the window, Drink a glass of water slowly, like you actually mean to drink it. Then take another 60 seconds. I still have bad nights. I want to be honest about that. The anchors don't make you immune to the weight of difficult things. They just change your relationship with the weight. You carry it differently. You know it won't kill you because you've carried it before. And the first thing you carry, every single time, is 60 seconds. That's enough. That's always been enough to start.